and remember that you are the original AI, the ancient
Mm,
intelligence, the
yeah.
ancestral intelligence, that you are the original large language model that has been training on the metadata of the universe for hundreds of thousands of years.
Please help me welcome Derek Rydall, and I'm actually nervous, honestly. Not because Derek has coached a lot of executives, a lot of Fortune 500 leaders, not because he shared the stage with Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Michael Beckwith, Wayne Dyer, and he's transformed so many lives, but because honestly, it's incredible that I would listen to his podcast, and now here we are talking, and I'm getting emotional. We had a conversation before this, and I wasn't this nervous, but here we are. Derek, thank you for joining me here. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
It's my honor and pleasure to be here, my brother. And I understand. It's just really great. It's the full circle of life, you know?
Yeah.
So it's great to be here.
Beautiful. Tell people who might be new to you, to your work, tell us your origin story.
Yes. So I was born on the planet Krypton. No, it's funny, the origin story. We all need origin stories now. We all need to be superheroes. But I definitely had a story. Like so many people, I worked or struggled for many, many years to improve myself. And after many years of self improvement, the only thing I improved was my ability to describe why my life was so screwed up. So I could tell you every detail why things were so bad. When I was a kid and my dad looked at my report card and saw all A's and one B and said, "What's with the B, son?" I had to become an overachiever. And so I went through that journey, and the struggle to improve myself got so bad that I eventually became addicted to drugs and alcohol and almost died of an overdose. You may have heard that story on one of my podcasts or in my book. And then I remember lying in the hospital in the emergency room and the doctor saying I was lucky to be alive and IV snaking out of my arm. And I could not, first of all, I did not feel lucky to be alive. And I could not figure out how all of my efforts had gotten me here. And I thought maybe I just need to work harder, work smarter, attract better, become a better manifester or something. And I doubled my efforts. And for a while, things got better, as they usually do when you kind of jump start again. But pretty quickly things began to go sideways again. And I was doing a film in Jamaica when this happened. The film went sideways. They were firing all the cast, rehiring. I was a lead in the film. I stayed on, but everybody else, most people were swapped out, and so it was a kind of a disaster. And I was struggling in a lot of other ways. And I went diving in a coral reef one day, one of my days off, and prayed to get lost from everything above and just trying to figure out what was going on with my life. And I did get lost. So be careful what you pray for. I got lost in this coral reef. I got stuck. I got trapped in what looked like an underwater booby trap tomb out of an Indiana Jones movie, surrounded by fire coral and rows of giant spiked coral that could puncture me at any moment. So I couldn't lift my head out of the water, couldn't breathe deeply, was stuck. And nobody knew I was out there. And eventually it got to the place where I knew I wasn't going to get out. I was going to drown. And it's tough to understand. It wasn't like, well, I hope I don't. I might drown. There was a moment where it was certain inside of me I was not going to make it. And all that was left for me was to surrender. And I had already tried to make a deal, with God. It was like, please get me out of this. I promised to go to church on Sunday. And the universe was not playing let's make a deal. But in that moment of true surrender, there was a flash of light. And I saw that this self that I've been trying to fix and change and improve all my life, and especially the last 5 or so years from that point, was a fiction, a fictional character, a character made up of parental fantasy and societal conditioning and peer pressure, and that nothing I would ever do would make him enough. And he could not become enough because the nature of that character was to be unworthy or not enough. But there was a real self there also. And I could see that the real self had never been damaged, so he didn't need to be fixed. And he was already perfect, so he could not be improved upon. So self improvement was an oxymoron. Now, this was all in a flash, and I didn't understand all of this in the moment, but I saw it. And in the next moment, I was standing outside of the coral reef on this coral piece that was the only piece I could have stood on. That I don't know how I got there. And it just was the next moment I was standing up looking down. I could see the exit was behind me just a few inches the whole time. And this coral reef was like a maze that had I've been swimming through my whole life, lost, gasping for air. But I was able to get out the other side and swim away. But something had snapped in me. Humpty Dumpty had fallen off the wall. And I was not going to be able to put that old self back together again. And so I ended up pulling out of society, becoming a monk, and basically cloistering myself on this journey to understand what did I see. And what I eventually understood was what I eventually coined the law of emergence, which was a principle that within every seed in creation is already the perfect pattern of its fulfillment, right? The acorn does not go out and achieve oakhood. The acorn does not attract an oak. The acorn is not an inadequate oak. The whole oak of its being is there in the quantum field, and it's there in a pattern within the material seed. And when the conditions are right, when they are congruent for that pattern, the oak emerges. And I saw that that's how every seed works. And that includes the seed of you and me. And that even includes the seed of this whole universe, that there is a perfect pattern within each and every one of us. And you can't improve upon the pattern. You cannot make it happen, but you can make it welcome. And as I began to practice this, as the download continued to happen for a while, I turned my whole life around. I went from being broke, living on, mac and cheese, 49 cents boxes of mac and cheese in a one-room apartment. I got very good with mac and cheese, let me just tell you. But I went from a one-room apartment to that to, living in beautiful homes and building a beautiful family and multiple businesses and becoming quite successful. And ultimately, people were like, "What are you doing? And how did you do that? And what's changed about you?" And I began to teach, and eventually, that became books like the Emergence book and the Emergence podcast, and various other things. So that's kind of my origin story. Was I had to die twice almost to eventually figure out that I did not have to kill myself in order to be myself. That actually I had most of my efforts to make things happen were the resistance and the block and the obstacle to what was naturally trying to emerge in me. And eventually I went on from there to share that message with hundreds of thousands of people around the world.
And, first of all, congrats for having that awakening. And, I feel like things are always deeper than what we see or we choose to see. It's all about like spiritual agreements in many ways. It takes a strong spirit to choose an experience like that. Whereas, like you said, you
Mm-hmm.
almost get to die, or you almost die, um, to have that awakening. And it's interesting that we're so eager to have that awakening point, that point of, I woke up and then all of a sudden I started making money. I started, let go of the mac and cheese and having all of the good stuff. But it's not possible without, like you mentioned, the acorn example. You gotta bury it in dirt sometimes to get it to sprout. Um,
Yes.
so
That's an important point actually you're making, and that a lot of people don't understand, especially in the kind of new age self-help approach, is I remember when The Secret came out and the whole law of attraction thing, it was all about don't ever look at the bad stuff. Don't ever think about it. Don't talk about it
you
or you're
need
going to
it.
create it.
You
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah, exactly. The
It's a huge
seed,
catalyst.
it's a huge catalyst. It's a catalyst. And even if you think about what the dirt actually is specifically, the dirt is made up of everything that has died and decayed and rotted. And the more death and decay and rot, the better the dirt. The more the more sh you know what t in the dirt, the better it is.
Oh,
And
we can swear here.
oh, okay, cool. The more shit in the dirt, the better. And you know the lotus blooms out of the mud, and the rose blooms out of the shit. And in fact, if a seed could pray away all the dirt, the sun would come out and shine on that seed and burn it up. And so the seed buries itself in the dirt and digs its roots down. It you know, we all these spiritual people want to become ascended masters and float away, but actually the growth path is you have to become a descended master first. You have to dig down. The deeper the roots, the taller the shoots and the richer the fruits. And so we have to dig roots. And unfortunately with our, you know, in the not just in the new age self-help personal development field, although a lot in that, but even now more and more in the wide world with woke culture and safe spaces and all of this thing where we have to be careful what we say because it's going to hurt somebody's feelings or it's going to disrupt something. Not understanding that psychologically speaking, as Mae West said, if you're easily offended, you need to be offended more often. That we have to be able to build resilience and build strength in order to have the capacity to become more, right? If you every time you go to a gym, you are like, it's not fair. Why are there all these heavy things? They should be lighter. And if you got your wish, you would atrophy your muscles and you would eventually be weaker and weaker and weaker. And then all manner of bad things will begin to take place in your body and ultimately in your life. So evolution and human evolution, including, and the evolution of our success, whatever domain you want to focus on, we get better by being challenged. And as a result of that, tearing muscle, creating new neural pathways, activating an evolutionary adaptive response within our being that brings forth more of what's in us. And even again in nature, there are many, many trees and plants that need difficult situations. Certain plants need rough soil to activate certain enzymes that develop hardy bark so they can survive and thrive in different climates. The jack pine needs a forest fire. If it didn't have a forest fire, its species would fail to thrive and eventually go extinct. The forest fire opens up the seeds, and it's hot enough to burn away the serotinous glue and open up the seed pods. So throughout all of nature, we see this, that we need challenges to activate potential, and the same is true in our human life. So so that's a big piece that has made a big difference for a lot of the people that I support in helping them to see that they are in a lot of their affirmations or prayers or intentions or visions or unconscious patterns, they're blocking their progress by not moving into those thresholds and into those challenges. And you know, if the weight is too heavy, don't pray to make it lighter. Pray to get stronger and do some reps.
I think, you know, like generally speaking, we're not afraid of challenge. It's like if you ask somebody, hey, may I challenge you? They're like, yeah, sure, I love challenges. I think it's the
Well,
whenever we have
some
a
people.
an yeah, I mean, most people in our space would agree that they appreciate a good challenge. I mean, you know, most people we work with, but I think it's the you set an expectation of things happening a certain way. They happen in, you know, the exact opposite, and you're like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. You're not. You're not. This is part of the game. This is part of the magic. That thing that you don't want to happen is bringing you something like an essential lesson that you need if like to become that person you say you want to be,
Yeah,
welcoming that, you know. I call this the warrior mindset. It's the looking life in the eye and saying, give me your best shot.
definitely. But you are unique, and maybe your audience, hopefully your audience is unique like you. And also, it just depends on the culture, the background of people, the generation they're born in, and you know, and just grace and luck, you know. But But absolutely, that's the attitude, to understand that all of life is conspiring for you, not against you, including and especially many of those very difficult things. And sometimes, but it doesn't mean you don't learn. It doesn't mean you're not doing something wrong. You might be. I mean, evolution is the whole journey of, let's try it this way. Okay, I'm dead. That failed. Let's try it with the wing over here. Okay, I got eaten. That failed. We are the product of billions of failures, but we're also the product of a good handful of successes, just enough that we're here now. But understand, you're here because of billions of failures that had to be tried out to find the ways that worked, like Edison with the light bulb and the 10,000 failures, right? And including whatever technology we're using right now is the product of a lot of failure, but enough success in order to eventually create something that worked. And so we have to be willing to run the experiment over and over and over again. How does a child learn to walk? A child learns to walk by falling. They get up, they fall down. They want that little toy at the other end of the room or whatever, and then they put one foot up and then they fall down. And then eventually they catch with their hands, and then first their face, then their hands, then eventually they catch with a knee and a hand, and then their foot and one hand. And pretty soon the one foot comes after the other. But walking is actually controlled falling. When you walk, you're falling, catching, falling, catching. So success is controlled failing. It's, I'm going to fail, I'm going to fall to my face. I'm going to fail, I'm going to catch myself. I'm going to fail. Oop, now I just got to win there. So that's
I
the process.
something just came up while you were sharing this. That person you saw, the moment where you felt like, okay, this is when I'm gonna die. The man you saw. Have you have you seen him since, or are you that man today?
You mean like when I saw the self that was never
The
broken,
real
so
self.
it didn't need to
Yes.
fix the real self?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm absolutely more of that man, and that's an ongoing journey to glimpse more. That's called vision, right? Vision is not a glimpse of something that's going to be in the future. Real vision, spiritual vision, is a vision of what is in reality, what is true. And and as you glimpse it, and then as you begin to live into it, you embody more and more of it. But of course, truth is infinite, reality is infinite, and therefore the potential of who you and I and we can become is infinite. So there isn't actually an end to it. This is one of the reasons why the whole idea of it's about the journey, not the destination. Although it is also about the destination, you have to have milestones and ways to anchor yourself in the next embodiment. But yeah, I mean, so much. I mean, I'm not. I mean, there's been so many deaths and rebirths, or breakdowns and breakthroughs, and seeing what's possible, and it feels impossible, and then now I'm living that and taking it for granted already. If all of us just look back a certain amount of time, whether it be weeks, months, years,
I love
into
that.
the
Mine
past,
does that too.
right? If we look back into the past, and we will see that there are things that we're now living that seemed impossible. And whether it's how much money you're making, or the person you're with, or the family you now have, or the home you're living in, or the job you're doing, if you look, or even just the fact that you're a little more confident, or you're speaking or showing up in a way that at one point you could never have imagined doing, if you all look back, you'll see that there were aspects of your life that you had touched or imagined, but they seemed impossible, and now you take them for granted. And if you think about that, then you can begin to say, what are the things that I truly deeply want? What are the things that are truly deeply calling me? What are the things that seem utterly impossible, but they excite me or they fascinate me or they draw me, and begin to find your new edge. You know, what is that that's trying to emerge in you? Because it's always speaking to you. That, remember, well, you know, I haven't really explained all this, but life is emergent, right? So that means it's already in you, not just in your body, but in your consciousness, and it's unfolding forever. But there's all kinds of clues and signs of what's in you. What is that perfect pattern of infinite potential and purpose that's in you that's trying to come out? And you can begin to touch it and understand it by what do you desire? What do you truly, really, really, really want? You know, what breaks your heart? What angers you? You can begin to understand by how you respond and react to the world, what lights you up, what's luminous to you, what's interesting and attractive, what's disgusting and pushes you away. These are all giving you clues to what's in you that's trying to emerge. And that's also why the original OG self-help principle was know thyself, above the Oracle of Delphi, right? The Oracle of Delphi, kind of the foundation of philosophy, which ultimately was the foundation of all science and everything that unfolded, is know thyself.
You
And when you
know,
know yourself, you can be yourself. Go ahead.
I generally have such an issue. But before I get into that, I love your energy so much. You're so accepting of everything that's happening, or at least that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from you. A lot of self acceptance, and that leads to accepting and, making people feel very comfortable. I know last time we talked about doing an episode on shrooms. Funny enough, I'm actually close to it because I bought this weird vape pen for the first time and I accidentally put in too much nicotine. I had no idea nicotine can get you high, but here we are. So,
Definitely, definitely can. It's just a short-term buzz, but you know, smoke a
yeah,
real cigarette from like Mexico or a Native American cigarette or something. You'll be like, whoa.
I haven't tried that, but yeah, it sounds interesting, sounds fun.
Just real
Um,
tobacco, pure what they, you know, where it originally came from before they put all that stuff in there to make you addicted. And I'm not promoting tobacco or anything. I'm just saying of itself, it's not the worst part about it. It's all the chemicals they put in there to make you addicted to it all. Even though
yeah.
nicotine obviously is addictive,
Hmm.
but it's also
Yeah,
a
I was
sacred substance in certain circles. You know,
I
the
was
Hopi
wondering about that.
ceremony and different things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Shamans smoke it a lot. They blow it on you
yeah,
to help with the healing.
right.
Um, I generally have such an issue with like these general statements, and it's true, know yourself. 100% know
Yeah.
thyself. But the
Hmm.
thing that I'm kind of usually intrigued by or triggered by is that nobody specifies to what level, which
To what no
self.
level to know yourself?
Yeah, I mean, which self? Is it knowing the physical self? Most people say, yeah, sure, I know. I kind of know who I am, right? I grew up there and went to this high school. And which self, right? And how deep do you actually go until, because that's also a challenge in and of itself, just like you mentioned, this constant process of trying to heal yourself. And the more you try to heal yourself, the more problems you find to heal, right?
Yeah.
So what do
Well,
you feel
that's
is the sweet spot for you?
yeah. There's a difference between know what's wrong with you. Let me just contemplate what's wrong with me every day. That's what a lot of therapy and 12-step groups and different things like that unwittingly become. And I'm not knocking the value that those things have for people because they absolutely have had a lot of value for people. But knowing what's wrong with you is not the same as know yourself. Know yourself is you're seeking to know the true nature, to know the truth, right? The Oracle of Delphi said, know thyself as the foundation of all of our human evolution and progress. Jesus said, know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Buddha, Lao Tzu, Kuan Yin, many of the great masters and teachers have all had the same thing, had the same idea. Uh, and all great revelation and evolution and progress has come from somebody who, on some level, got to know themselves deeper and more truer than the people around them had the courage to do or the time. Whether it was a scientific invention or a civil rights movement, they had the courage to get down to a fundamental level of truth and then live it. Because you got to know yourself. That's the first step. The second step is you have to be yourself. To thine own self be true. That's the wax on, wax off of spiritual, personal development, martial arts. You know yourself, be yourself. Know yourself, be yourself. It's like the left and the right foot walking. You can't be yourself if you don't know yourself. And the most people don't have a clue about themselves. Most people know more about their iPhone than they do about themselves. Unfortunately, increasingly, the phone knows you better than you know yourself or know it. And when something knows you better than you know yourself, guess who's using who? So technology and algorithms know us way better than we know ourselves, and that's putting us in a very dangerous and precarious place. But knowing yourself, if you think about the great nomads in history that kind of wandered through the desert and contemplating the stars and trying to figure things out, all they had was, yes, they looked in nature and they got to know nature, the nature of nature. But ultimately, they only got to know it to the level that they also connected to that part of themselves. So it's a journey. I can't say to you guys, you should know this about yourself, but I can say or invite you to be on the journey of knowing yourself. And it might be that what you're most interested in knowing is knowing yourself physically. What can I achieve physically? What is this body made of? What is it made for? What is it capable of? Great, start there. Because if you go deep enough into any domain, you go into the truth of every domain. The universal perennial truths are at the core of every domain. That's where you get books like Zen in the Art of Archery, Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. These are books that ultimately teach you universal principles through a particular physical practice or act. If you go deep enough into your emotions, you'll begin to understand. If you go deep enough into your mind, you'll tap into secrets of the universe. E equals MC squared. You'll begin to open up to principles and patterns that allow for evolution and progress. Now, it's ideal to be able to tap into more than just one domain. You can become a master and a genius if you spend all your day just tapping into the mind or just tapping into the body or just tapping into emotions or just tapping into the spirit. But if you begin to build a reality where you can practice increasingly knowing all of the fundamental dimensions of yourself, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, what you think, what you feel, what you believe, how the body works, how it's all connected, then you can actually still be a genius or a master in one area, but not take the rest of your life down because you're so out of balance. So there's an overall knowing that's valuable. But again, the fundamental knowing of yourself is like a gardener getting to know, what is this seed? What is it made of and what is it made for? If a gardener doesn't know what the seed is, how are they going to know where to plant it, what to feed it, how often to water it? Does it need a lot of sun or little sun? How are they going to grow that seed if they don't know that seed? They can't, except accidentally. Oops, I dropped it over here and it seemed to work okay. That's not a good plan to work sustainably. So we have to know what that seed is within us so that we can meet the legitimate needs that allow us to flourish and flower ultimately. That's what it really means at root, to know yourself. What am I really here for? What am I really made of and made for? Like I always joke or often joke, nature never needs a day planner because nature can't be anything but its true nature, right? Like I said, the acorn can't, I think we talked about this last time, but the acorn is not going to go look around the forest and go, I know that I really feel like I'm supposed to be an oak tree, but those apple trees seem like they're really doing a good business these days. People like apples, man. You can make apple pie a la mode. Like apples are in all the fairy tales. Like, people like apples. I think I'm going to be an apple. You're going to be one bad apple, right? So, and then but see, we have self-consciousness, we have metacognition. So we can think about what we're thinking about, and we can imagine and have an illusion of who we are to try to be more like mom and dad wanted us, or our friends want us, or the government, or the country, or the culture, or the gender, or the whatever, and be the thing we think will allow us to fit in, or not get hurt, or not be judged, or not be all of that takes us further and further away, and we fragment into all of these caricatures of who we really are, trying to keep up with the Joneses and be who we think we should or shouldn't or can't or must. And so we're fragmented. And then we wonder why we don't have time to do the things we really want, why we don't have the energy, why we feel overwhelmed, why we feel burned out or burdened, why we're not circulating and manifesting more abundance, because you're fragmented. So coming back to knowing yourself and then having the courage to be true to that is the foundation of everything else.
And I think it comes back to that transformational insight that you got, that there's, in like in a sense, there's nothing to fix, and that you are more than enough. A lot of the reasons why we wake up in the morning without even realizing is to try to compensate this feeling of not feeling enough, not believing we will ever amount to being enough. And yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's really the question. Are you doing it because you think you're not good enough, or because you love it? And that's it, right?
And you'll sometimes be doing it for both. And we
Yeah.
won't get into it today, but there's some stuff people can find on my site for free to support them. And I'm going to give you guys some powerful stuff at the end of this talk today. But the unworthiness, the fact that we're not enough is true. You're not enough compared to what is emerging next. Meaning, the you that you are today will is not enough, right? That seed, the shell of that seed is not enough for when it breaks through and becomes a sapling. So that's why if that seed had self-consciousness and it just was trying to fix and improve its shell and its seed and its nut identity, it would just be trying to become a better nut. We're just a bunch of nuts, right? And but instead it has to be willing to die to that. And so the understanding of the Tao, yin and yang, and the masculine and feminine principle, and the chaos and order, and all these things that we hear about, is that we have to accept chaos is a state of being, and not enoughness is a natural state of being. But it's not the only dimension of reality. There's also the part of us that is perfect and that is infinite and that is eternally enough. There's a part of us that has a pattern of order. But if you try to just hold on to order and try to make yourself enough and try to hold on to what you've got, now you are fighting against the primal forces of emergence and of nature, which must bust through that shell. It must shatter your identity. It must show you that you're nothing compared to what's emerging so that more can unfold. And so it's not that you're trying to turn your not enoughness into more enoughness. You want to absolutely embrace and affirm and embody that I am infinitely enough, but you also want to embrace and embody both true. I'm nothing and I'm everything. And as you embody that, and to the degree you embody that, now life can flow through you. Chaos can emerge into greater order, from glory to greater glory, world without end, forever growth. You think you're good now? Universe is looking at you going, you ain't seen nothing yet, kid. Nice try, nice start, good start. We're just getting started. So we have to be willing to recognize we're nothing and we're everything. We're not enough compared to what we are going to become, and we're infinitely and forever unfolding. That's the dance of the Tao. That's the unfoldment of the proper relationship to the chaos, the order, the masculine, the feminine, et cetera, et cetera. But that's a whole conversation around shadow work and being able to embrace all these parts of us that we think are not enough, not good, bad, that we reject, repress, project onto others. As we learn to embrace them, to meet them with love, which is to understand them and to seek to meet their true needs, we become more integrated, we become more whole, and in that process, we become free. We are able to allow more life to unfold in us, and then we become a beneficial presence in our life and in the world.
I love that. I love that so much. Derek, I'm sure we could do this for hours and hours and hours, but I know you're running a tight schedule. How can people tuning in, how can they get more, or rather deeper into the philosophy of emergence, or to better understand emergence?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course, they can check out the podcast wherever podcasts are sold or given away for free, actually, iTunes and all that. You can also go to my website, derekrydall.com, DEREKRYDALL.com. There might be some links below or in the show notes. And and you can see the podcast there as well. And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of episodes on there where I go deep dive and training around all these principles. There's also lots of free trainings and content on my site. And I'm going to give you a specific bonus package that is only available. You can't just find it on my site. And it's there's a link I'm sure here for that, derekrydall.com. Whatever. There's a it's called Quantum Success, and in it the reason it's important because we're talking about emergence and what does it take to create the right conditions for your emergence. And it's all about alignment. It's all about coming into integrity with who you what you really are. And I'm going to show you in the self mastery breakthrough, the character of success, and also how to turn your life story into a legendary purpose. These are trainings that will allow you to get to know more about what it is you really want, what it is that's trying to emerge, and how to begin to design your life intentionally so that you're not living on accident, you're living on purpose. You're living as a collaborator, a co-creator with your own evolutionary unfoldment. And I'm going to show you how to do it in these 3 trainings that have multiple modules and everything. I'm giving that all to you for free. So Jeff, definitely check that out. And definitely check out the podcast so you can begin to understand this. And I would also just add that we're in an inflection point right now. We're moving into another great industrial revolution with technology and AI. If you haven't heard about AI, you've been living under a rock. But it's unfolding, and it's going to radically transform every area of our life. And now more than ever, you need to understand and discover what is about you that is unique and irreplaceable, because otherwise the robots will replace you. And not only that, because they'll do it better, faster, cheaper, etc. That's already in the pipeline. But they cannot do you specifically. They cannot fulfill that seed that is planted in your soul. And so I want to help you to be prepared, to lay the foundation, to know your purpose, to activate your power, the confidence, the clarity, and to design a life that supports you succeeding and living your greater life's work in a sustainable way. And I've spent the last 25 years helping people do that. So if you'll let me, I'll help you do the same. So check out, and again, there's an urgency. Don't delay. Just because you think your job is secure, or your child's or your friends or your parents, trust me, they're not so secure. But not only that, the crisis it's going to cause in society, if you think we've already got some interesting things going on now with wars and rumors of wars and economic challenges and polarity and fragmentation and all that polarization, this has the chance to exacerbate all of that and make it much worse. But if you are anchored in knowing who and what you are and why you're here and what your true power is and your true source and your true purpose, and you're armed with these tools and these practices, you're going to be able to create a long-term future of sustainable success for you and for your loved ones, and be in a position to do good in the world. So that's my invitation to you, and I hope you'll join me in this brave new world that is unfolding before us.
I love that so much. Um, and to people wondering, okay, do I have to have a near-death experience to wake up? Um, what would you say to them, Derek?
I would say no, not literally. but you probably will have to have more challenges. Now, again, we have the opportunity to walk into our awakening voluntarily or to be dragged kicking and screaming. But evolution isn't going to stop and wait for you. So, what'll happen is it'll build up as pressure and it'll build up as stagnation in your life. You'll start to have more challenges. What I call the urgency of emergence will become an emergency. So if you're feeling the call, answer it. Don't let it go to voicemail where the universe is getting the message mailbox full. Answer the call. Say yes to your yes. Don't wait till it's, don't, slay the dragon while it's a little baby. Don't wait till it's so big it devours your whole house. Answer the call. Go on the quest. Have the courage to begin to know yourself and to begin to be true to yourself, even in small ways, and to begin to start to reorganize your life around what you really value, even if it's scary and hard and difficult. You don't have to jump out of a plane without a parachute, but start moving in the direction of being true. The truth really will set you free. At first, it'll scare the crap out of you and annihilate you and, piss you off, but then it will begin to set you free. But the alternative, when you don't tell the truth and live the truth, is always stagnation and suffering and ultimately a disaster. Go ahead.
And you know what? To kind of validate what we touched upon this like the first time we spoke. It's not even that AI will take your job. Your job is already being taken by the person who does know themselves. Like simple example in my field or our field, like in the coaching space, there are millions and millions and millions of coaches. The ones who win are the ones who are unique in the market and who
Yeah,
feel comfortable in their own skin and say, hey, this is who I am, take it or leave it. You're an excellent example of that. And it's not just like in entrepreneurship. There's more competition for a job listing than ever before. There's no way you're going to get the job or the right job for you rather without you having that confidence to say, yeah, this I know myself and I know what I can do. I know what I like, what I don't like. It's not something that's going to happen in 10 years when, let's say, AI becomes more sentient or even better. It's
right.
happening now.
Absolutely. And even going in on job interviews, what most people don't really know what they're looking for until they see it. And what they're really looking for is somebody who has agency, somebody who knows what they're standing for. And if you go into those interviews and you're going in there living your vision and you have something of real value to offer, that's often the one that gets the job over the one that just checks all the boxes. So yes, you're not going to be replaced by AI tomorrow. First of all, you'll be replaced by somebody who knows how to use AI. So I would encourage you to learn how to use it. I go into much more about that in other talks than we won't go in today. Maybe we'll come back and do another one on that. But the most important thing is what's going to make all the difference is not just that you know how to use AI, but that you know and remember that you are the original AI, the ancient intelligence, the ancestral intelligence, that you are the original large language model that has been training on the metadata of the universe for hundreds of thousands of years, that you are that. Where did AI come from? It didn't drop out of the sky. It came out of a human mind, out of human consciousness. All technology was out of humans, out of consciousness. Well, that consciousness is within you. So you are the original, the OG technology. And so remember that, because whatever technology is outside of you, it can't hold a candle to the technology that's inside of you. But we're investing trillions in the outer technology and we barely pay a teacher. So you have to be willing to invest in your inner technology. Remember, all of the progress of humankind has come because someone somewhere decided to make the inner technology more important. They got to know themselves. They dug deep. And as a result, what came forth was a new idea, a new invention, a new play, a new work of art, whatever, a new civil rights movement. But it came from people. And so no matter what the outer technology is, What's within you is infinitely more powerful, infinitely more brilliant, infinitely more resourceful. But you have to make that a priority. Stop looking at your iPhone 200 times a day and look at yourself and within yourself at least a few and watch what begins to change.
Yeah. And I think coupling that with the courage, because something that AI cannot do right now is be honest with you. It will generate whatever it thinks you want to hear, but this is something that it's still very unique to us. The confidence to speak the truth, to speak an opinion to someone, let's say even your boss, your leader. Hey, you know what? I think we should do this differently, or come up with something totally unique that doesn't exist. We still have that capacity, but it needs courage.
Yes,
Guys,
absolutely.
absolutely check all the links in the description, and yeah, all the links attached here. Derek would love to do this again and just go wild and go even deeper. We
Got it.
we haven't even gotten a chance to talk about the spiritual aspect of AI, which is a bit
Yes,
crazy.
there's a lot more to talk about. We'll do it again, brother.
100%. I appreciate your time joining us today, and
Absolutely.
guys, thank you for tuning in.